From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine on this Monday. Nick Barris here. It's a live show here on the Plus, and we have a very good show on tap for you this morning. We're going to be talking about what much of the country has been talking about over the past week. And actually, it's a dialogue that's been going on for some time prior to that. But with all of the things that happened last week, the controversial shootings in Louisiana and Minnesota of two African-American men, and then, of course, the horrible tragedy of a peaceful protest that was then shattered by the lost lives of 5 police officers killed by an assassin, if you will. Everything that's come out of that and the discussion that continues to this day, we're going to discuss this morning and open up the phone lines with you. 615-737-7587. Your chance to join in the conversation and relating much of what we see around the country to what we're dealing with and what we see here in our own community, I think is very important. That's why we have 2 fantastic guests, and a third will be joining us in just a moment to talk about this. Dr. Sekou Franklin's with us, political science professor at MTSU. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to have you on, sir. And also Reverend Enoch Fuzz with us from First Corinthian Missionary Baptist Church in town. And we'll be joined in just a moment from over at Fisk University, Dr. Revis Mitchell, who, like many of us, gets caught sometimes in traffic, and it happens, but he will be joining us in just a moment. All right, gentlemen, if you would, just your thoughts after, and let's start with you, Reverend Fuzz, with what we saw last week. And as I said, this kind of stuff's been going on, but with what we saw last week and where we are today, and just overnight and yesterday, all the arrests in Baton Rouge and protests continue. Your take on this, just...
Here we have an opportunity to be a better nation. Police relations in Nashville, we worked hard to make it a better city. It's very heart-wrenching to see what's happening. People are very divided, and somewhere in the midst of all this division and the emotion and the animosity, someone has to step forward and say, let's look at this as an opportunity to be the better place, and somebody's got to be the better person. People are hurting, they're arguing, they're antagonistic, they're putting that thing out about all lives matter. All lives matter, all houses matter, but the fire department focuses on the one that's on fire, and that's what we're looking at here.
Well, what happened last week, at least regarding the shootings of the 2 black men, that's not a surprise. That's been going on for some time, and I think that unless there is some type of resolution, whether that means a national policy regarding a new civil rights legislation of some kind that addresses these issues, these incidences and cases are going to keep repeating themselves, and protests are going to continue, and ultimately you're going to continue to have battles in the street from city to city to city. And talking to young people, or at least having some insight on some young people who have been involved in these protests, they're not going away. And part of it, I think, has to do with, 2 things that have gone on in the last 8 years in particular. The first is this idea of polarization, racial polarization, for a lot of different reasons on issues ranging from healthcare to climate change to immigration. The country's racially polarized. Just from the standpoint of social science research and people looking at data regarding how people analyze and view and interpret police-related violence.
Right.
Blacks and whites differ dramatically, and that polarization has grown in the last few years. Some would indicate, or some would argue, that the polarization coincides with the racial animus that has emerged in the Obama era, and white racial resentment and a whole range of factors related to that. And so this is just one indication. In fact, the data shows that blacks and whites can look at the exact same shooting and come to entirely different conclusions as to why that takes place.
Well, don't African Americans and whites have clearly a different experience when it comes to law enforcement. I mean, and that's the thing. Some people say in some of these cases that they observe what appears to be some resistance, that the people aren't responding to the officer's commands, and then I hear on the other side, well, would you, if you were African American, the moment you get stopped by a cop, if you're black, what goes through your mind?
Turn your lights on.
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, I get stopped by a police officer, okay, and I think, okay, well, maybe I was speeding, okay, everything's gonna go fine, he'll give me a ticket, I'll be on my way. You get stopped by a police officer, you feel the same way, or are you worried that something more is gonna happen?
Well,
I've been stopped so many times, more times than anyone should in their lifetime. And this is what I've got to look at, what people are going through. 1973, three police cars pull up and said, hey, let's take a full load downtown. Hey, you get in the car. My first time arrested. 1973, we're getting off from work, landscaping. Police come by. Hey, you guys got to move on. Last year, I'm doing 33 and a 30. I get pulled over. You're speeding. 33 and a 30, that's some kind of profiling. Though, and I can go on with listings of things like that. I'm walking down the sidewalk. This is me. I'm walking down the sidewalk in my community. Policeman pulls up. Hey, can I see your ID? I say to him, really? Am I speeding? I'm walking. I said, you know, this could go really bad, young man, if this had happened to some of these young kids out here. A couple of years ago, a murder happens in the community. I go down to tell the police, I have 2 young men from my church who are witnesses. If you don't get out of here, we're going to arrest you. What I saw here in Nashville, Chief, my response was, after that walking down the sidewalk incident was, I was angry. My response was to call Don Aaron and say, Don, let's get together and talk about how can we help? How can we bring better relations in this community? Hats off to Chief Anderson. Some people don't like it. One thing that he did is he required police to let the protesters protest.
That's right.
And I think even the protesters should give credit to that. Chief Anderson also says that worried me, and I meet with him often. He says, Enoch, we're doing the best we can. We know we're not perfect here. We need the community's help. Red flag went off. I said, not perfect. What are we going to do about that? Now, we can't just be angry, protest and march and go to war and not be willing to come sit down at a table and line out some tangible actions that we're going to take here in Nashville to improve this police community relations, because it's not real well. The other part is that police leadership in Nashville are some great folks.
We're going to take a break on that note, because I want to talk, and you're absolutely right. You saw what just happened in Baton Rouge. A lot of the protesters there who were arrested were blocking the roads, and they arrested a bunch of them. Chief Anderson, you know, not too long after Ferguson, allowed a protest that shut down part of the interstate here, and it went, and it was peaceful, and sometimes you have to allow protests to occur. Listen, we'll take a break on that note. When we come back, more of our conversation with our 2 guests here. We'll also be joined by Dr. Mitchell as well in just a moment, and we'll take your phone calls. Lines open as we talk about, as you say, big umbrella topic, racial divide in America and some of the issues we're dealing with. We'll be back with more right after this. Stay with us.